If you've been waiting for the right time to buy or sell, then you've probably been asking yourself, did I miss my window or is it still ahead of me? Because the last few weeks just proved something very important, and that's the market doesn't wait for certainty. Now, just a few weeks ago, mortgage rates were just below 6%. Now they're back up closer to 6.5%. And that shift alone is already changing how buyers and sellers are behaving here in Frisco and Prosper. By the way, if we haven't met before, this is Andrew with the Andrew Smith team, eXp Realty, and I help people navigate the Frisco and Prosper real estate market. And if you're trying to figure out how all of this applies to your situation, whether it makes sense for you to buy, sell, or just wait, then I invite you to give me a call. You can find a link in the description below. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what's happening right now, what the data is telling us, not just the headlines, and what it means for you if you're thinking about making a move this year. So let's dive in and take a look at what's actually happening, because this is where the numbers start to tell a much clearer story. Now, the first thing that we're looking at here is the total number of closed sales. And right here, I'm going to say right up front, context matters, because a lot of people can report different numbers, but they're not always looking at the same thing. So right here, as you can see, I'm looking at only residential properties. And this is only single family homes. I predominantly deal with single family homes, so that is what I'm reporting on. You can also see here that I'm looking at all construction types. In Frisco and Prosper, our markets are heavily influenced by new construction, as I'm going to show you in just a minute. So when we look at the market overall, here's the important thing to know. Frisco is the blue line, Prosper is the red line. So closed sales for the month of March were actually down 11.1% overall year over year in Frisco. In Prosper, they were up 1.5%. Now, saying that, if we switch this and we look at just resale homes, you can see that the numbers are a little bit different. In Frisco, resale properties were closed sales were down 7.5% year over year, and in Prosper, they were up an incredible 23.1% year over year. Now let's look at new construction. This is really interesting. You can see here, new construction in Frisco was down 29% closed sales year over year, and in Prosper, 30.8% year over year for the month of March. But here's what's important to point out right here. Closed sales are what are known as a lagging indicator. It's like looking in your rearview mirror backwards. These are deals that were negotiated 30 to 60 days ago. So in essence, these are numbers being reported from contracts that were signed in January and February before the busy spring season had even started. So it's not necessarily demand dropping. It's really all about, well, timing. So if we want to understand what's happening now or closer to now, it's really important that we look at what the pending sales numbers are. Those are properties currently under contract. So when we look at the pending sales for March, you can see here that Frisco is essentially flat. They're not up or down year over year. When we look at all construction types, Prosper's trending up 3.2% year over year. Now, when we look at just resale on this, now it starts to tell a little bit of a different story. Pending sales in Frisco were down 2.2% year over year in the resale market, and they're down 4.1% year over year in Prosper. Now, when we look at new construction, and as you can remember from the closed sales, they were way down. But look at this. New construction pending sales in Frisco is up 19% year over year and up 28% year over year in Prosper. So this is actually where the real story is. It's showing us that the buyers haven't left the market. They've just become more selective, and a lot of that activity has shifted and moved towards new construction. So next up here, we're going to look at overall supply, and this is looking at months worth of supply. Now, it's important to remember here that A balanced market is considered to have somewhere between 5 and 6 months supply. And I'm not going to go into in this video exactly how supply is determined, but know that between 5 and 6 months is considered balanced. To get much more than 6 months, the market generally favors buyers. If it's less than 5 months, it really starts to favor sellers. So you can see here look at the Frisco number for all construction types. We're at 4.3 months of supply. So we're still leaning towards sellers here. But in Prosper, you're at 5.9 months. So much more balanced overall. When we break this down by by the resale market overall, you can see that the resale homes in Frisco have really jumped up. It's showing us what's been happening. More sellers have put their home on the market. It's still at 4.3 months, which is a 19% change year over year. And Prosper is now at 6.1 months. So it's really sitting right at the upper end of that balance. Now, if we look at new construction in Frisco, you're now up to a 4.1, or you're down to a 4.1 month supply of new construction year over year. There's been a lot of new projects coming online, and we've seen more inventory come in the new construction over the past month, but it's still down compared to where it was last year. Prosper, on the other hand, has 30% increase in supply, and the new construction market is running at a 5.6 month supply currently. So basically, when you have more inventory, it means there's more competition for the number of buyers that are out there. It also means more opportunity if you're on the buy side of the equation. So you can see with more inventory in Prosper, when you look at all of the data so far, you can see why the Prosper market might feel a little bit different and is performing a little bit different. All right, so the next thing we're going to go into is pricing. Okay, and this part is probably the most important section I will show you in this entire video, because it's where most people misunderstand what is actually happening with pricing. Let me show you. Now, some buyers I have talked to recently, and even some of the comments that have been made to some of my videos, seem to indicate that pricing is going to fall, or it has fallen, and that the market is very unstable. And everyone's entitled to an opinion. I get that. And honestly, none of us know exactly where pricing is going to go, but I do want to show you again here what the actual numbers are telling us. You can already see in the pending data, which shows us future demand, it's actually fairly stable. When we look at pricing, you'll see what I mean here as well. So right now, if we look at all construction types for March, pricing in Frisco was down 0.2% year over year, so pretty flat. Prosper was down 6.4% year over year. But again, it's different when you start looking at where this is coming from. So in the resale market, Frisco prices on the resale market were up 3.8% year over year. Prosper was down 7.1% year over year. When we move just to look at new construction, here the Frisco prices were up 4.5% over a year. On Prosper's prices in new construction were down 10.7% year over year. Now, if you look at a lot of the headlines, Texas overall, it shows you pricing is down year over year. But again, every real estate market is local, and that couldn't be more true when you look at our local numbers here. Although it may seem as though pricing is down across the board, you can see by what I've just shared that that's absolutely not true. When you break it out, it really depends on which market you're looking at. And what's emerging here is that we've got two very different markets. So in Frisco, both the resale market and the new construction market, they're holding up relatively well. Both are showing year over year price appreciation. In Prosper, however, you do have more pricing pressure. They've got more supply relative to the amount of demand that there are, which is creating additional opportunity for buyers. And I'll be honest, this is where I'm having a lot of conversations with people right now, because depending on whether you're looking for a new construction home or a resale home, the strategy that you need to follow can be completely different. So if you'd like some help navigating that, that's exactly what I help you do. Go ahead, find that link to my calendar in the description below, and let's talk about your specific situation. Now, the information I just shared with you is from the local MLS. And one of the things about the MLS data is it's a month behind. It's updated only every single month. This, what we're looking at right here, is from my weekly market report. Now, this data is more real time. It's updated every single week. So there's a few things here to point out. I'll run through a couple of things for Frisco quickly, and then I will show you Prosper. So right here, you can see that there's a slight seller advantage in Frisco right now. That is due to the fact that the supply of homes in Frisco relative to demand favors sellers just slightly more than it does in Prosper. And the first thing I'm going to look at here is the median list price. Now, the median list price is important because it kind of shows us pricing trends. It shows us where the new properties coming to market are priced at and whether that's going up or going down. And as you can see here, it's remaining relatively flat. Okay, it started to inch up just a little bit here, but it isn't showing any pricing pressure with regards to the new properties coming to market in Frisco. Yes, I understand anyone can list a property at any price, but most of the time when a seller puts their home on the market, they're not putting it out there to just sit for months at a time. Next thing we're going to look here, we'll just show you what's going on locally with inventory. And you can see here, this dashed line is the 7-day trend line, whereas the solid line is the 90-day trend line. So you can see here that the inventory in Frisco is improving. So it's showing that new supply is continuing to come to market. And last up here, I always like to look at properties with price decreases. This is an absolutely fantastic leading indicator. It's showing us more what's going on in the future. The reason for that is if you start to see a lot of sellers making price reductions, it's an evidence of weakness in the market in terms of demand. If you see price reductions falling, it's an indication that demand is relatively strong and sellers are not having to cut their prices. If we look here, it has been trending down. We did jump up ever so slightly. We're talking 1% last week, but in general, this has now turned and it's sitting fairly flat, so it's still showing some decent demand in the market overall. Now with that, let's jump up and take a look at the same things with Prosper. I'll start again with the list prices. Again here, even though Prosper has had weaker pricing than Frisco, as the data just showed us, you can see here that pricing in Prosper is starting to turn up for the newest listings, both on the 7-day trend line and the 90-day trend line. So that's showing us going forward, it doesn't look as though there is going to be as much continued weakness in that market in Prosper. And again, you know, it really depends on whether you're looking at resale or new construction. Again, in Prosper, if we look at the inventory, you can see, as we just went over, inventory has jumped up quite significantly in Prosper since January. So there's been quite a big run up in the number of homes for sale. Then lastly, if we look at the properties with price decreases in Prosper, you can see here that that had been increasing all the way into March. But over the last week, it started to fall again, which means that the resale sellers out there are starting to see more activity. They're starting to see more buyers come through their homes, and they're less motivated or less inclined to actually need to cut their price. So hopefully after going through that, you can see why it is that I like to look at the weekly data. You know, it gives us so much more of a real-time insight view into what's happening. And right now, we are not seeing additional weakness in the market overall, even with everything that's been going on across the globe. Right now, we're actually seeing a market locally here, and I know in Frisco and Prosper, we're in a bit of a bubble. It's actually fairly stable overall. Now, if you're not already and you would like to receive this weekly market report delivered to your email inbox every single Wednesday, then you can do that. It keeps you up to date on exactly what is happening in as close to real time as possible in your market. So in the description below, check out the links that I have available for those. So what does all of this mean now that we've run through the numbers? Well, for buyers, if you're a buyer, you can probably see that the biggest opportunities right now are in new construction, especially in Prosper. That's where you're seeing the most inventory, the most competition, and often some of the best incentives. Now for sellers, if you're selling or you're thinking of selling and you've got in the resale market especially, it's important to understand that you're not just competing with an increase in a number of resale homes coming to market, but you're also competing with the builders. And they've got a lot more flexibility, if you like. They can bring more incentives and they are more flexible on their pricing, which means that your strategy is more important now than it has been in years past. Homes that are positioned correctly, the shiny pennies as I call them, especially those in the best overall condition, are still selling. If they're not, then they are definitely sitting longer. So at the end of the day, in closing here, the biggest takeaway right now is we're not really just in one market anymore. We've got a couple of different markets and they're both moving at different speeds. And the last few weeks were a great reminder of something really important. And again, it's that the market doesn't wait for certainty. What I do know is that buyers are still buying, sellers are still selling, but the strategy behind those buy and sell decisions are more important now than they have been in the last several years. So if you're trying to figure out what makes the most sense for you, whether you're buying, selling, or maybe it's just to wait and not do anything, then the best thing you can do is look at your specific situation and not just the headlines. And if you'd like help with that, as you probably already know, I've seen many different market cycles over the past 20 plus years that I've been doing this, and I'd be more than happy to help you with your situation. There's a link again in the description below to my calendar where you can schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me. And if you'd like to stay up to date as this market continues to shift, then don't forget there's also a link to my weekly market reports. So I hope that you found this information useful. Again, don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to discuss in more detail. I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.